Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Penfield Zoning Board of Appeals. Due to the public health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, this meeting is going to be conducted remotely pursuant to Governor Cuomo's executive orders, including Executive Order 202.1, which suspended certain provisions of the New York State Open Meetings Law. The meeting is being video recorded and is being broadcast live on the Town of Penfield's website, www.penfield.org, and on the Town of Penfield's Government Access Channel 1303. The meeting will also be transcribed. If you would like to address the board on any public hearing matter, there will be specific public participation opportunities for each application after the board responds to the applicant's presentation with its questions and concerns. You can participate by calling 340-8771 or by submitting a comment electronically on that website, www.penfield.org. Tonight, we will start with our work session, and once that's complete, we'll go right into tonight's application, the public hearings. We do like to point out that we think the town does a good job of alerting people in the town that applications are going to be heard so that people can come in and freely comment on the applications. Town does this by making the applicants post a sign in on the property, sending postcards to neighbors who live within a certain distance of the subject property, and by posting the agenda on its website and here at the town hall. And as I said, we certainly welcome people's comments. It helps us do our job and sort out the issues sometimes. I think I've covered everything. Been doing it for a few years, but I do still miss some stuff. In any event, having said that, I'd ask everybody to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. And again, tonight we may have some of the board members lead the applicants through the process. We do have very thorough written applications on every matter. We've gone over them. So I want everyone to know, feel free to speak your mind, say what you need to say, but also understand that we have prepared for this, and we're going to bring out and elicit certainly the important facts. So, having said that, may we have the first application, please?
Do you want to do a
minutes and work
meeting?
session?
Oh, yes. Well, yes. And I was on a roll.
You were.
So, let's see. I actually think that, will you guys be okay with holding the minutes to next month? Okay, because they were pretty involved the last meeting, and I know you worked real hard on them, so we want to give them their due course. So unless anybody has an objection to that, I'll just make a motion to table consideration of the minutes to the next meeting.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then, we do have a table. I'm having trouble pulling up my agenda here, but here it comes. No, we don't have any table
there's nothing
applications,
table.
right? We got rid of them. All right, so let's go for questions of clarification on the first application. Do we have any?
I just had one question.
Yeah.
Is there a variance request also for signage or no?
No, signages, we're all set with the signage.
We're all set with signage?
It's just
Okay.
the change of use.
Thank you. Just checking.
Any questions for clarification on 2? 3?
It's the same question as Marie for 3. There's no issues with signage or anything. It's just the change from one church to another, right?
Correct.
Okay.
4? 5? 6? And 7. See, I probably could have skipped that. I know you guys are sticklers. All right. So now I think we are ready for the first application.
Albert Meilutis, Metro Mattress, 3545 John Glenn Boulevard, Syracuse, New York, 13209. Requests approval for a change of use under Section 250-5.5-B2 of the code to allow the operation of a commercial retail business, Metro Mattress, at 2150 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by Ming Feng Chen and is owned BN-R, SBL number 140.01-2-70.123. This is application number 21Z-0024.
Okay. May we have the applicant begin by giving us his name and address for the record, and then the board will launch into questions. So go ahead, sir.
My name is Albert, or Al Meilutis, and our corporate address is 3545 John Glenn Boulevard, Syracuse, New York, 13209. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the corporation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for coming this evening. We received your application, and it looks very thorough. Now, just to clarify, you want to relocate your Metro Mattress that is now in the Penfield Square Plaza to 2150 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road in the existing building, correct? That's there.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it was the old AT&T and CB Depot building, and you want to combine those two?
Correct.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about the hours of operation, employees, parking, things like that?
Sure. Our hours of operation are Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Generally, throughout the week, Monday through Thursday, we generally operate with one employee in the store. Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, or special promotions, we may have 2 employees in the store. Our parking requirement is generally very low, even on a peak sales day. At any one snapshot of time, you would have probably fewer than 5 cars.
Okay, thank you very much. We did receive some questions about, excuse me, wait, before I go into that. So I was wondering if you ever had any delivery trucks or anything like that going to the place?
Each store that we own has one delivery truck that comes in once a week, and they're there for about 15 minutes. They drop off any product that's coming into that location, pick up anything that has to leave, and is on its way.
Okay. We did receive a comment from a neighbor on Braunston Drive. These questions were mostly geared towards the board itself, Mr. Meilutis, but I do want to just answer them, to enter them into the record, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first question was that it was from Mike Young, 46 Braunston Drive, and I was questioning whether this store was going to be placed on the vacant land or the existing building, and I just want to be clear, and you mentioned that it is the existing building, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the second question he asked was, if this variance was to be granted, would any subsequent commercial businesses need to reapply for a variance? And actually, yes, they do. As a condition of this business non-retail, any business coming in would need to come before the zoning board. Is that correct, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. And then the third question was, what, if any, impact would this have on the zoning of the surrounding parcels? Would this open up any of the nearby parcels, either built or not, to be rezoned as commercial rather than business non-retail? Andy, I don't know if you want to speak to that directly, but I don't see how this really changes anything.
No, it really doesn't have anything to do with the additional, or the neighboring parcels. Any rezoning would have to be done by the town board, and I'm not aware of any plans to rezone that area anytime in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Those were all the questions I had.
Any other questions from the board?
The only question I have, in terms of product, you don't keep most of the mattresses there. People come in, order one, and then it comes out of a different location. They aren't all coming out of here, correct?
That's correct. Our main distribution facility is in Syracuse. So if you order something by 7 PM, generally speaking, we have it in stock in Syracuse, and it's on a truck the next day delivery or any day thereafter.
Excellent, thank you. I just kind of said that more for the fact of people worrying about deliveries coming and going all day, every day type thing, but I think you kind of covered that by saying you only have one truck, and that's because you don't keep the stock there.
That's correct.
That's a really good point, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any electronic submissions here on this application. I don't also see anybody in queue on the phone. So, there being no other comments, no other questions from the board, let's go ahead and proceed with the deliberations.
Okay, I'll move that this is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker requiring no further review.
I'll second.
Okay, so on seeker, we have a motion to declare it type 2 and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And on the application?
Okay, and I would make a motion to approve this application for is it a conditional use permit that we're doing? What is it?
Change of use.
Change of use, sorry about that. I do think that this store is absolutely keeping in with the intention of this parcel of land that was created by the Penfield Town Board that did allow some restaurants and retail businesses. I don't see any detriment to the community in terms of parking, traffic, or anything like that. As a matter of fact, there's probably maybe even less traffic than there was maybe with the AT&T store. I would think it would be at least very similar. And I don't see any harmful effects to the health, safety, and welfare of the people working there or anyone coming in the store or the community surrounding it.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve for the reasons stated, and we have a second. Any further comment? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes,
I missed, who was the second?
Mike. Okay, good luck.
Okay, thank you very
you.
much.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Night.
Too.
Creek Ranch LLC, 1500 Creek Street, Rochester, New York, 14625. Requests approval for a change of use under Section 250-5.6-B2 of the code to allow the operation of a doctor's office at 1527 Empire Boulevard. The property is currently or formerly owned by Creek Ranch LLC and is zoned limited business, SBL number 093.19-1-1, application number 21Z-0025.
Okay, may we have the applicant give us, name and address for the record, and same thing for anyone else that may be speaking.
Good evening, Attorney Michael Pattison, the applicant, submitting this change of use request to this board on behalf of Creek Ranch LLC. My client is also on the line and may be speaking if the board has questions for her.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, before we get into it, I'll remind anyone that has comments about this, you can call 340-8771 or submit electronic comments at penfield.org. All right, so folks, my understanding is that the desire here is in essence to convert a house that had been used as a residence into a medical office. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I just wanted, I think I laid it out pretty succinctly in my letter of intent, but key factors are it's a psychiatric doctor's office that's mostly or predominantly telehealth. So these offices are going to be used more so as doctors meeting, similar to how we're meeting right now. At any given time, there's 2 doctors and 1 manager. There's a part-time admin that is in and out of the office, but there should be no more than 5 people at the facility at any given time. I did also provide the hours of operation. Monday is a day off. It's just an administration day. Hours are 1 to 5 p.m. And then Tuesday through Thursday would be the days of operation, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m.
And nothing planned in terms of alterations on the exterior and only minor on the interior, if I understand.
Yeah, the minor interior changes were really partitions so that the living room and dining room are more converted to a waiting room, and then there was like a sliding glass vestibule for the front desk.
Okay, and I know maybe a couple of days ago you submitted a floor plan, which I think is up there now. We've all had a chance to see that. Do we have any other questions from the board?
No.
And again, once again, I don't see any electronic submissions. Do we have any phone calls waiting? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Well, then let's proceed with the deliberations. I will make a motion to declare this a type 2 action under seeker.
I'll second.
All right. I've made the motion. Andra seconded it. Any further conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, likewise, I'll make a motion to approve the request for a change of use. It's a pretty simple application, thorough in the documentation and a clear presentation tonight. I think it's a good use. Minor changes are going to be made. There's plenty of parking. The hours of operation aren't going to be anything that results in any disturbance to any of the neighboring properties. So for those reasons, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Lawrence Bendijo, Calvary Chapel, Center City, 875 Main Street, Rochester, New York, 14605. Requests approval for a conditional use under Section 250-13.3 and Section 250-5.1-E1A of the Code to allow the operation of a church at 1274 Penfield Center Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by the Rochester Korean United Methodist Church and is zoned RA-2, SBL number 110.01-1-52. This is application number 21Z-0026.
Okay, again, may we have the applicant give us his name and address for the record? And then
Sure.
we'll
My name
start.
is Lawrence Bendijo. I'm the applicant on behalf of Calvary Chapel Center City, located at 875 East Main Street, Suite 400, Rochester, 14605.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I just have a few questions. Like the applicants before you, you did a good job of laying everything out. I just want to make sure I clarify some things. This property has been a church since around the 1980s, correct?
Correct.
And you're not going to make any changes to the exterior?
Nope.
And you're not going to make any large changes to the interior?
Nope.
Do you anticipate all of the church activities to be inside the church, or are you going to host events outside the church, out in the yard or the driveway, like festivals or concerts or anything like that?
They'll be primarily inside the church.
Okay. Does the church have any employees, or will the church have any?
Yeah, there's 2 employees currently.
Okay. So clearly there's plenty of parking on a day-to-day basis, and then you're comfortable that there's enough parking for parishioners when they come for masses?
Absolutely. There's 96 total. There's 56 in the main parking lot, and we have an overflow that can fit 40 plus more.
And all of the signs that exist now, you're going to just put your signs, the new signs, up in the same place? There's going to be no additional signage?
Correct.
Okay. I have nothing else.
Any other questions from the board? Again, I see no comments through the website and nobody on the phone as well, so let's proceed.
For seeker, I would make a motion to declare this a type 2 action, requiring no further review.
Second.
Okay, Matt's made a motion under seeker, Mike seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed, okay. Merits?
This may have been one of the easier ones we've ever had.
Well, that's why it was a
Yeah, that's, I could tell, I could see.
We're a fun group.
No heavy lifting on this end of the podium. I'd make a motion to approve it. It's been a church for 30 to 40 years already, and it's going to remain a church. There's going to be no changes. It's going to be in harmony with the neighborhood. There's certainly no detrimental effect to any of the properties, and it's certainly not detrimental to the health or safety or general welfare of the public. So I would make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
All right, motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
You.
Hey, lead with your chin, man.
Yeah,
What are you
hey.
gonna do?
Morgan Properties, 160 Clubhouse Drive, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, 19406. Request approval for a special permit under Section 250-10.3-A of the code to allow 3 freestanding signs, whereas a maximum of 1 freestanding sign is allowed under Section 250-10.12-C of the code at 2250 Penfield Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by Hidden Creek LLC and is zoned multiple residents. SBL number 140.01-1-10, application number 21Z-0027.
Okay, if we can have the applicant give us name and address for the record as well as anyone else that may be speaking, please.
Hi, my name is Lauren Werkheiser. I am the design director for Morgan Properties, and we are the applicant on behalf of our site, Pembroke Meadows Apartment Communities, and actually, of course, I don't have their address readily available. We're based in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and Pembroke Meadows. I'm gonna pull up their address if you need me to repeat it right now.
Town of Penfield.
Yeah, town of Penfield, we
You got it?
understand, yes. Thank you, Andres.
Okay.
All right, so.
My name is Richard Crawford. I'm with Barcher Signs. We're at 302 North Washington Street in Augsburg, Pennsylvania, which is near Pottsville. Project manager and designer. And before I hand this back to Lauren, there's one correction I need to make. We submitted a design packet. And on the last page, page 10, the sign is identified as sign 4A. It's not, it's sign 3. There are only 3 signs that we're talking about tonight. And also, thank you to the board for hearing our application. We appreciate your time.
Okay, are you aware of the application that was made to this board in 2016 for the existing signs that are there?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, you proposed essentially the same size signs as you're proposing here? I mean, there were the 2 single face signs were about 18 square feet. Now you're asking for 15. The single double-sided sign was about 8.5 square feet. You're asking for 12 here. And that was basically not denied, but modified down to the existing signs at 8.5 feet. So what's different now that wasn't in effect then that would make us change the resolution of the board at that time?
Well, it's a different company. And we can't really speak to the motivation or what the thought process was for the previous applicant, the previous owner. Lauren Werkheiser probably could speak to what Morgan Properties is seeking when they install signs at a property. I was asked to look at the signs, and I found that they were too small. And we're attempting to make them a little bit bigger so we can display the name properly so someone can read it when they're driving in a car. We are in the process of revising signs and rebranding signs all over the Rochester area for Morgan Properties. We've done maybe 35, 38 locations. These will be the smallest signs we have done, and that's fine. We're trying to work within the parameters of the code. All these signs are code compliant. What we're asking for are 2 additional signs. The way the property is laid out, instead of coming in an entrance where you would have a main identification sign and then driving in, so you only need 1 sign, and the code only allows 1 sign. This property is along Penfield Road, and you need a sign at the north end of the property, and you need a sign at the south end of the property, and it's natural that you would have a sign identifying the leasing center, which is the smallest sign.
Which, in all due respect, is what you have now. A sign at each end and one in front of the leasing center, correct?
Yes.
Okay. With
Correct.
regard...
Can I just jump in here? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So just to that end, I just want to kind of elaborate a little bit on what Rick mentioned. So former ownership Morgan Communities had no affiliation previously with Morgan Properties. While they both were founded by someone named Morgan, we had no affiliation with one another. So about 1.5 years ago, our company acquired all of the assets in the Morgan Communities portfolio. And as Rick pointed out, we got a nice chunk of communities in upstate New York, mainly in the greater Rochester area. So 64 properties were acquired. Phase 1 was to rebrand 44 of them. Pembroke Meadows falls kind of on the tail end of that phase, where a majority of these have already been changed over and rebranded. And our company policy has always been, and it's part of our standard operating procedures when it comes to, what our signs are to entail, that's been dictated by owners and investors, and it's my job and Rick's job to enforce that, is that there's certain content that has to be included on our end from a branding and from an identification standpoint. So while previous ownership, may have had a different approach to their branding, and the way in which they were comfortable with their main signs being identified and viewed, we have a very different approach, and it's very important to us that our signs are consistent. I will mention too that Penfield Village, which is not too far from here, is a pod with Pembroke Meadows. They both operate out of the Pembroke Meadows office. That site's already been updated. The main sign's already been updated. And it has basically the same exact content that you're looking at now for Pembroke Meadows, but with a different property name on it. But part of our standard operating procedures with signs is that, the phone number and URL be visible, highly visible, in addition to the logo. So when we were looking at the design aspect of this, and we were trying to work within that 8 square feet, which is really just small when it comes to a main sign. Generally, in our experience with Rick, what Rick and I have done in various states, we're in 20 states now, which is hard to believe, but we're always looking at signage and approaching it from a perspective of someone who's never been to the property before, who's not familiar with the area, doesn't necessarily know where they're going, trying to navigate on a cell phone. So our goal is always to make signage clear, concise, and to include information that we feel is most important so that someone can easily identify it while driving. So in terms of the increase in the size, that was really our logic behind it, because we started to light it out within the parameters that are there today, and we just found that it was useless in some cases, and it just wasn't easy to read or understand, especially from someone that would be navigating in a vehicle.
Well, your branding is your branding, and I certainly understand where you're coming from and where the company's coming from. We also have a code that we have to follow, and that doesn't include the owner's branding for a sign. These determinations as to what's small, what isn't small, have been made by our town board and put into law. We're compelled to follow that unless there's a good reason why we shouldn't. This has already been visited once, and I'm not hearing anything other than the ownership doesn't like it, that would lead me to feel that you need this in order to adequately identify your business. You're on a road that's with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. The signs are close, the existing signs are close to the road. The buildings themselves are close to the road, and there's a lot of them, and they're all the same color. Given that, I didn't have any problem reading them going by at 25 miles an hour. So is there another reason why this is necessary to adequately identify the business?
Yes, I think it's summed up in the letter of intent, which I hope the board read. These signs are in harmony with the standards for permitted signs in the town. They're code compliant.
But
We're asking for 2 additional signs.
yes, which is not
Okay.
code
No, no,
compliant.
Hear me out.
Yeah,
So the question is, I mean, we're all interested in speech. We protect speech, commercial speech is protected. On the other hand, towns are interested in signs, and they regulate signs, and they're interested in aesthetics. Sign size is not an aesthetic. So how do we merge the two? We merge the two with science. How large should a sign be so a driver can see and read the sign and make a driving decision? I will concede that 85% of the people driving by, like the board member, they know the sign, they know the area, they actually already live there. But there's 15% of the people driving down the road on the north end and the south end of the property. Someone on the south end can't see the sign on the north end. They don't know that they're at the property. Those 15%, that's how the sign is designed. The sign is designed so someone who doesn't know the property can see and read the sign. And that includes EMS, that includes delivery, which everyone's having things delivered. That includes visitors to the property. That includes potential new residents. And that's why we upped the size of the sign, so you can adequately display the copy Pembroke Meadows apartment owns. It's strictly the reason, and there's a scientific reason why. We just didn't make it up. In fact, we downsized from what the science says the sign should be. We submitted a copy of street graphics in the law along with our application. I direct you to Chapter 4 in that American Planning Association publication. This sign is not too big. It's not outlandish. It fits within the codes of all the neighboring towns that you have. And we're asking for the additional signs because of the layout of the property. That's why. So you have a sign at the south end, it can be red. You could have a sign at the north end. Again, someone at the south end can't see that sign at the north end. And it is entirely reasonable and within the spirit of the code to have a sign at the leasing center. Now, if you want to make it 11 square feet, not 12 square feet, fine.
mentioning the leasing center.
But at a certain point,
Can I-
8.65, I've been in the business for 38 years. 8.65 square feet, in my professional opinion, is inadequate. I can't tell you why MC Properties accepted that. I can't tell you. I don't understand. Any professional would say, that's inadequate.
You done?
Yes.
Okay. What about the?
I'm sure I made some friends, but, you know.
What about the leasing center sign that's to the right of the door? That's another freestanding sign. So now you got 4 signs there existing. Anybody make an application for that?
That wasn't part of the original application. I don't know if it can be seen from the road, if it needs to be removed.
I saw it from the road. It was pretty evident. And you have a large building-mounted sign right next to the leasing center.
Well, there was a comment from Margaret Hill about signs at the leasing center, which I told Lauren about. There's a sandwich board sign, and then there's a sign at the leasing center. I don't know if Morgan Properties has evaluated those, but if they need to be removed as part of this application, they can be removed.
Yeah,
Are
they can.
are you, that's correct? Do you agree with that, Ms. Merkaiser?
I do, yeah, we do not have a problem with that.
Okay, I'm not. we're going
All
in
right,
circles.
I'll just remind the public that if they have any comments, they can call 340-8771 or file electronically at penfield.org. Do we have any other questions from the board? I certainly saw the application, and I did see the attached material, the scientific analysis that you have so described and mentioned, but I haven't heard anything from anybody that there's been any problems with the size of the current signs, other than the theory and the evidence. Have we had anybody come in since this application was granted and saying we have a problem with sign, or we weren't able to find it? So I understand the sections that you submitted and the reasons why, but it appears to me that the reality of the situation is we haven't had a problem, or we would have heard about it in the last couple of years. So
I submit that's not, you're not going to have that report.
We're not?
Come on.
Oh, okay.
So what the research says is, it's objective. It's not my opinion. It's what the respondents to the studies said. what is legible, what is visible.
Can I say something?
And so if nobody said it wasn't big enough, that he couldn't find it, there's no research that was done to look at that.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's not uncommon that if people can't find particular locations or buildings or businesses, it's not uncommon for the current operator or owner to call the town and say, hey, we're having a problem, and to come back to this board. That hasn't happened here. So
I've never heard of that happen.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. I just, in my experience, I've never had a property manager call me and say, I'm going to complain to the township, or that I've called the township and they've done nothing about it. I mean, typically they would go internally and say, hey, we're having a problem. What can we do? Maybe we can put a sandwich board out front, like what they have now, or maybe we can add some feather flags, like what they have now. But I mean, we're all pretty privy to the fact that it's not easy to just call the township and complain about, the size or the number of your signs and have it immediately change. I mean, typically you have to vet that internally and figure out if we want to then take the necessary steps to ask for relief or special permission or apply for a variance. So again, we've had this property since October of 2019. And since then, both the property manager, the regional manager, the area vice president, and my boss, who's the SVP of the department, have all been under the understanding that we are completely rebranding and doing entirely new signage. So any concerns that they may have been dealing with, they're not going to call the township and communicate that. They know that we're already handling it, working on rebranding and updating the signage.
Yeah, right.
I just want to comment one more thing.
Go ahead.
I completely understand everyone's concerns, and listen, like I said, Rick's been doing this for a really long time. He and I have been doing this together for a really long time, and if you look at the renderings, we're not asking for a dramatic increase. We're just asking to increase it, to make it larger based on, the evidence that Rick has presented, to make it legible so that the content that we're required to include on the sign, regardless of what previous management, felt that was necessary, can fit comfortably and is easily legible. I mean, if you were to squeeze all that down into 8 square feet, I mean, if you look at it now, the sign is really hard to read, especially from a distance. So I don't think that what we're asking for is unreasonable. To Rick's point, we're asking for, the number of signs and what's been proposed in terms of size is in compliance, unless I'm misunderstanding. So we're really just making sure that we can keep what we have today, which is 3 signs, 2 main signs and the leasing center sign along the main road.
And if I can follow up, the application is for 3 signs that are code compliant, that meet the 5 points of criteria in your town code or your application requirements. And if I could just throw this out, would it make any difference if we made all the signs 12 square feet?
I want to understand, are you...
Yeah, that's a hypothetical?
Yeah, are you amending your application to reduce the size of the request? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. Well, we all live in the real world, and we've done this. If the application as presented is going to be denied, but you would approve if all the signs were 12 square feet, is that possible? Because the pushback I'm getting from the board is, you don't like the application.
Right. Well, I think that's a fair reaction to the questions that we've asked. And I tell you, I am stuck on the fact that you've had the property for that time. And frankly, what I've heard tonight is rebranding. I haven't heard, wow, we've had people come in and say, man, is this a tough location to find? Those signs are so small.
As professionals, we know.
Hold on. All I'm telling you is what I have not heard. You've given us a chapter from a journal. You say it's objective. I understand that. But so is real life experience. And while you say you haven't heard, I can tell you, I've been on this board for over 20 years, and I've heard a number of times people come in, call the town, and actually then come into this board and ask for a larger sign because the one they have is not working. For that, not for rebranding, not because we're changing our model or our logo or our color, but because people can't get to the location. And you guys haven't presented any evidence of that tonight. You haven't.
Well, I have to say, I didn't know that was part of the application.
Well, it's common sense.
I'm being sarcastic. I apologize.
You're asking for us to grant an exception to the code on the size.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're saying to you,
it's a
why?
it's just-
Why
it's a
do you
special
need
permit,
it?
correct?
And you're telling us because you've rebranded.
It's a special
you
permit,
can't
correct? It's
see
not a
it.
variance, right?
Well, but many of the principles are the same, and business
Yeah,
identification
right.
is
So to your
safety,
point,
all those issues.
To your point, we never go to a property and take a survey of the neighborhood and say, are the signs adequate? It's Lauren and my job to figure out what the correct sign size and location and orientation is. We oftentimes change the orientation. So that's our job. We don't go out and take a poll. We don't wait for people to come into the leasing office and say, oh, we couldn't find you. People aren't going to say that. So I think you're holding, I think you're
It's
holding
not
us to
true.
an unreasonable standard.
People say it all the time. We hear it
they
all
do.
the time.
Then you should change your
Well,
code.
I just
Well,
want to
exactly.
reiterate what
But
I
this board
said
can't.
previously.
You should, wait a minute, you should be arguing the science to the town board. They're the ones that make the law, okay? You're entitled to your opinion. They put into a law what they feel is reasonable, okay?
We're not asking for size, we're asking for number of signs.
It's
we're
same
not asking
idea, okay? And they've also made a determination as to what's reasonable as to number of signs. You applied for, not you, but the owners of this property that were in ownership in 2016 have applied to have 3 signs. In order to do that, the board determined that 8.5 feet was sufficient and granted them, they could have said no, and they could have put 1 sign up that was code compliant, okay? Instead, they allowed 3 signs smaller than the code allowed, but they allowed 3 signs, which somehow is now turned into 4 signs.
We're still smaller than the code. We're still, to another point, I've written national model sign codes. You always miss something. No code is perfect. There's always something where the particular property, it doesn't quite apply, and people come in for relief. We are coming in for relief.
But you're not
We are
giving us,
we
you're
are
not
the
giving
previous
us a
owner.
reason that we can grant that relief under the code.
As outlined in our letter of intent, the sign sizes currently are inadequate for adequate legibility and visibility.
I disagree, okay?
Well, it's not a personal thing, it's based upon the research. We all can have an opinion about this.
Well,
We all can have an opinion.
Did you
about it.
drive by
you
and
live
take
in
a
the
look
town.
at
We don't live in
25
the
miles an hour? I did, a couple times.
But sir, I will say, you're from the area and you're following speed limit as well. I mean, think about people that are looking for an apartment, that are navigating on a phone, that aren't from the area or aren't familiar. I mean, you're assuming everyone's driving at the speed limit. And again, I understand, well, basically, we're asking for exactly what it is that we have today. We want the same number of signs that we have today.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are proposing that they are slightly larger, not drastic, and no one's going to call the township, especially since we've had this property since fall of 2019, and complain about the not being able to find something or about the size of it, because internally, we all know that the signage is being changed. So the complaints and the headaches that they may receive, maybe why they put the sandwich board out front to draw attention, are all being talked about internally, because they're not going to call you and ask you those questions when they know Rick and I are handling it. And I completely, I mean, listen, this is actually the first time in the dozens of sign variance hearings that I'm getting the feedback about not getting complaints to the township. If we would have known that that was part of, you know, our arguments here, then I probably would have gotten more in writing and followed up. But I mean, it's just, we're trying to think logically here. We would like to continue to have 3 signs at the north and the south end. The size that we're proposing, for a variety of reasons, which Rick already stated, is compliant with the code. And we're just asking to continue to have the 3 signs that we have today, both leasing center and then identification signs on both ends of the community. Because it's not one where you know, it's the same way in and out. There's multiple ways to get to it, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Comments?
I guess I just need clarification. Are the signs 12 square feet or are they 15 square feet?
Now,
I don't know. It was mentioned, but then it was kind of.
they're 8.5 square feet presently.
No. The application right now that we're hearing.
Oh, yeah.
It's jumped back and
There
forth,
were
but I know
two-
there was expert opinion in that they needed to be 15, but then we also reduced it to 12, so I'm just
12
curious.
is the double-sided one in the front, is my understanding, and the others are 15. The ones on each end are 15 square feet.
Well, since we were having a back and forth, I put that out there. That's all.
Right.
And I appreciate the board's discussion on this. And it's within your discretion, and signs can be an emotional thing, and we're hoping that it's not.
Also, in terms of the other signs, I want to make sure I have it clear that what you're willing to do about the signs in addition to the 3 that you're asking for tonight. And if you want to talk about that, take a few minutes and talk about it. You maybe didn't expect that question.
Can we just clarify which signs we're referring to? Is this the one that the comment was submitted on, the sandwich board and the now leasing?
Well, I think it would include those, yeah.
Okay, so, because my understanding is the comment was submitted, I'm looking at it, the now leasing, which is, I guess, considered a sign, it's a feather flag on the entrance of the leasing center driveway, and then the sandwich board out front that says now open were the 2 commented on, and those 2 we have no issue with removing.
No, the one I was commenting on is to the right of the door. It's freestanding, it's on a pole. It says leasing center, and I believe it says Pembroke Meadows below it, but I'm not certain. It definitely says leasing center on it.
Correct. Okay, so, yeah, so the signs within the actual community, so there's 2 currently, there's lettering on the building, and then there's a freestanding sign. So we were just going to continue with the building sign and to eliminate the freestanding sign altogether. But that was not included in anything that we submitted for this particular instance.
You got that then?
Yeah, they're going to remove it as a
The
condition if we
freestanding
grant
sign in
it.
front of the leasing, directly in front of the leasing office, like as you're approaching the door,
Yes.
is being removed.
Okay.
All right, so that sign and the sandwich sign as well would be gone. And then the signs that are now 8.5 feet would be limited to 12 square feet, if I heard you correctly. I just want to, again,
Yes.
be clear. All right. We do have a caller, but not on this application, electronic submission. So I don't see anything else. And any further questions or discussion? Okay, well then let's proceed with the seeker.
Seeker, I would
Yeah.
move that this is a unlisted action and issue a negative declaration, no further environmental impact or adverse environmental impact.
I'll second.
Okay, so on seeker, we have the motion to declare it unlisted and issue a neg deck. Any further comment on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
With regard to the motion, I think it's pretty clear from my questions and comments that I would move to deny this application. Basically, for what you said, Dan, that there hasn't been a showing that the signs are necessary, the larger signs, to adequately identify the business. I think given the fact that there's a lot of units there, they're, again, all the same color, light tan, it's pretty hard to miss finding the apartments if you're there. Also, the signs, again, are close to the road. It's, the speed limit is low, so that people aren't supposed to be whipping through there. And the signs are close, the building's close. For those reasons, I don't think they've shown enough to overdo what the board found in 2016, that 8.5 feet was sufficient, and you could still accomplish the purposes of identifying the property at each end, plus where the leasing center is with those 8.5-foot signs on whatever height pole they were on.
Okay, so that's a motion to deny?
Yes.
Did we get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Andres, second. Any further discussion?
Well, I was thinking that the reason I think that the sign actually could be a little bit bigger is because when you are driving by, yes, you can read that it's Pembroke Meadows, but you can't easily see a contact number and a website, which is what you would use if you wanted to research the apartment or something. So from a marketing standpoint, to me, those two pieces need to be a little bit bigger. So I could see a 12 square foot sign. Like you're driving by, you're apartment hunting, okay? Oh, I really like those. Where do we go for more information? I can't see that on that white sign that's 8.5 square feet right
Would you
now.
need it on the sign? Wouldn't you look it up online?
Well, if you're driving by it, I would probably say, oh, 6200, morganproperties.com. And I'd look it up.
Okay.
Any comments from you guys at all?
No.
Okay.
I mean, to me, I mean, Marie's got a point, but I would also say that most people are stopping their vehicle if they're going to be recording information from a sign, I would assume. You're not, it's against the law to use a cell phone and drive through, just like it's against the law of speed. I'm not sure if we want to encourage people to be speeding or using their phones without stopping to record that information. But I think the point is, last time, when someone comes in and asks for more signs, there's usually give and take for a code. Yes, the signs are compliant by themselves. You take one sign, it's perfect. But then someone comes to the board and says, hey, I'd like 3 signs, and I'm willing to say I'll allow the signs to be smaller so they're less of a visual impact to the area because you're having more. And I think that's that give and take we made before. And now we're saying 3 signs, and we want them larger too, and that's where I have the struggle before, because typically that's how it works. You say, this is what you're allowed, this is the code, and this is where we're looking to compromise. And so that's why, I don't know if I heard anything different tonight that really stuck out.
I mean, to me, I could support a 12 square foot sign maximum and no other signage, those other 2 removed that we were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I can support a 12 square foot sign too. I frankly, I understand the whole coming in 2016 and making the application, the give and take, but I also don't necessarily see a difference between 8.5 square feet and 12 square feet. If I was sitting on the board then, I don't know that I would have opposed a 12 square foot sign rather than an 8.5 square foot sign.
If you couldn't see the difference, then why would you grant it?
Because clearly you can, visually, I don't know that it's necessarily going to make a big difference visually, but you can fit more information in that extra 3.5 square feet.
Well, I mean, that's true. What you just said is absolutely true. Okay, any?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can go either way with this one. It's not a, to me, the difference between 12 and the 8.5 isn't a dramatic amount. And I think I do agree with what Matt was saying, that if the prior application had come in looking for 20 square foot signs and sized it down to 12, we would have said, that works.
I gotcha. Okay, well, again, what I've said so far is I just haven't seen anything that a change is necessary. I certainly understand all the arguments, and they're not unreasonable arguments, but I know based upon the experience here that if they would have heard, the applicant would have heard from people if there were problems identifying. And I understand the rebranding. We deal with that every time we have a sign. That's okay. But again, what you guys have talked about is absolutely not unreasonable as well. So
Dan, are you considering the application as having been amended for the 12
yes.
square feet?
Yes, I am. I didn't want to. I think
they've-
council acknowledged that.
Did they, though, Dan?
Well,
He said no, I thought, when you asked him that question.
Well, what, are we now at 12? I think you have 3 board members saying that they would support 12 square feet.
We're at 12.
We're at 12.
I just want to clarify.
You all right with that, then?
Yes.
Okay. So, we have a motion to deny, just for purposes of a vote. I'll second the motion. So,
All right, I'm going to withdraw the motion. What's the point?
right. Okay.
Let's get down to it.
Somebody else want to make a motion then?
So I would move that we would approve the 3 signs requested not to exceed 12 square feet, and then removal of the 2 additional signs at the leasing center that we mentioned.
I think it probably should be conditioned on only 3 signs. So it's not just the removal of the 2, but they can't
have any other signs.
They can't
but
put up
3.
other signs.
Good qualification.
That's correct.
Do we have 3 or 2, though? We have the leasing center, we have the
North and a south.
A-frame.
No, that's going to be gone. It's
Well,
just
but
the
you
leasing
didn't
center and then the north and south sign.
Right.
Everything else has to be,
Everything else is gone.
Every other freestanding sign.
And
temporary
Andy, correct
sign
me if I'm
or-
wrong, those feather flags are considered signs, correct?
Yeah, no, they're actually not permitted by
Yeah.
code.
At all.
Right,
Yeah, I didn't say.
which is a whole other issue, but, no. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay. so
I'll
we-
second it.
We have, all right, we have a motion to approve the amended application with those conditions, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, doesn't get much closer than that with 5 people. So the amended application was just approved 3-2. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody need a break? No. All right, good. Next application.
Robert and Victoria Fess, 22 Hillcrest Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526. Request an area variance under Section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a garage addition with less setback than permitted under Section 250-5.1-F1 of the code at 22 Hillcrest Drive. The property is currently or formerly owned by Robert and Victoria Fess and is zoned R-1-15, SBL number 139.06-4-65, application number 21Z-0028.
All right. May we have the applicant give us name and address, please?
Robert Fess, 22 Hillcrest Drive, Penfield, New York.
Okay, and before Andres starts with his questions, I'll just again remind the public, any comments, call 340-8771 or go on the website, penfield.org, and submit them that way. Go ahead, Andres.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. Just a few questions. Can you talk a little bit about the design factor and how you determined that you should keep the garage even in the front and not step back 2 feet? Does that make sense?
Stepped it back, aesthetics is gonna, I think that's gonna throw it all off.
We have to tear down the whole garage.
And then the garage, with the garage siding that it is, and you set it back another 2 feet, you're gonna lose 2 feet of the garage also. So I'd have to go deeper behind the garage to make it the same distance inside the garage itself.
Okay, and then with that, you would have additional costs and factors that come into play there as well by doing that?
Yes.
Okay. And when looking at the garage, one, I do really like that rendering. I'm an old design student, so I actually like the fact that someone hand drew something still, because you never see that anymore, so that's quite nice. You don't.
Yeah.
No one can do it anymore.
Clearly they can.
Well, someone can, yeah, it's good, it's good. So in a sense, other factors, so why not 2 doors, in a sense, 2 separate garage doors where you could offset it? Is that also a cost factor in terms of, the design has to be changed to additional doors, additional operators, additional labor and materials?
Doubles everything.
Okay.
I mean, if need be, we can go 2 doors, but aesthetically speaking, we can go back and forth either way with a 18-foot door or 2 9s or 2 10s.
Okay. But then, in a sense.
We just want to age out here. We have 2 vehicles. It's winter time, sooner or later here, so we're trying to get the vehicles in after a while.
Sure. And it looks like your home is one of the only homes in the street with a single-car garage within 2 or 3 homes if you look down the road, correct?
Very few.
Okay.
Very few single.
Okay, so your home's almost not in character with the neighborhood if you were to look at that. But by having a door that was larger and a garage that was larger would be more in character with the neighborhood and fit in the same as well.
Yeah, it looks very small in at one side of the home with a single-car garage.
I don't disagree with that. In terms of drainage and things like that and impacts from water runoff, are there any issues currently in that area?
No.
Okay, and by adding this garage, do you foresee any issues with how water would run off the garage or go into your neighbor's yard or things like that?
No, because actually the runoff right now is, the driveway's already been enlarged and the downspout's been there for 15 years. So the runoff would be the same.
Okay. And then in terms of the home, the addition will be same outside facade. It'll blend in. It won't be a different color or different style.
We just had it sided last year, so we're just going to match everything we have.
Perfect. Any issues? Have you discussed this with your neighbor next door there? Do they have any issues with it?
No, we discussed it with her, and she's all on board with that, not a problem.
Okay. That's the only questions I have.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
No.
All right. I don't see any electronic submissions here. Anybody on the queue for the phone? No? Great. All right, let's proceed then with the consideration.
Okay, we'll start with it. This is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker requiring no further review.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Nobody opposed, okay?
Okay, and then the merits, I'm going to move to approve this application. In terms of undesirable change, it doesn't look like it. If anything, I think it'll blend this home more in with the rest of the neighborhood. Everyone's within the next, I think two, 3 homes either way. All of those homes do have a double car garage. So this is actually the smallest garage on the street in terms of blending in. So I don't see any detriment from this. Could there be benefits sought? Not to expand a garage. I think the only other way is, you might have a large shed in the back where you put something, but you still can't park 2 cars in the garage. So I think this, in our climate, the applicant said it'd be nice to park both cars in there. Is it substantial? 2 feet? No, because I believe probably at some point this home was built in compliance when it was built. And if anything, the neighbor's house is at the same distance from the road as well that he's going towards. So I don't see any issue with going those extra 2 feet because it's just going to continue on the same plane of the home across the front. And in terms of environmental or things like that, he did talk about drainage, and currently there's no issues right now with the driveway already expanded, and doesn't foresee any issues with that as well. So with that, I'll move to approve.
I'll second that, and it's good, very well explained. Motion to approve in a second. Any further comments?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed. All right, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle Millar and Nicole Dominguez, 35 Valley View Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526. Request area variances under section 250-14.3 of the code to allow a shed with less side setback than required under section 250-5.1-F1 of the code and less rear setback than required under section 250-5.1-F12B of the code at 35 Valley View Drive. The property is currently or formerly owned by Kyle Millar and Nicole Dominguez and is zoned R-1-15, SBL number 139.11-3-69, application number 21Z-0029.
All right, may we have the applicants give us names and address, and then the board will launch into the questions.
I'm Kyle Millar.
And I'm Nicole Dominguez for 35 Valley View Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526.
Thank you.
Hey, guys. I'm going to be upfront with you and let you know that my biggest issue with this application is the degree of the variance that you're asking, especially on the side setback. It's really pretty much abutting your property line. It's supposed to be 10 feet, and it's 1.1 feet from the side setback. And looking at your yard and the layout of your yard, I'm not entirely sure why you can't push it more towards the middle of the yard to make that variance, the necessary variance smaller. So why is it that you can't push it so that it's maybe a 9 foot away from from your property line, or 8 feet? What's going on there?
Well, considering we have those trees going along the west side, and there's also a 6-foot wooden privacy fence along the west side and the south side right there as well. And you can't see it because of the trees there. Obviously, that picture's taken in the spring, but when all those are filled in, you can't see anything back there, and it just seemed like a natural place to put the shed, as opposed to if we moved it out to 10 feet that required by code, our bay window would be staring directly into the shed. And we talked to the neighbor in the back, Mrs. O'Brien. She had no problem with putting in the shed back there whatsoever. and I've never got a chance to spoke with our neighbors behind us, but I can't speak for them, but I don't think they would have an issue with it, considering that it's already almost hidden by the trees, and you would only see maybe 1.5 foot at the top of the shed, if that, behind the 6-foot privacy fence as well.
So,
Seems like a more natural fit back there than sticking it in the middle of the yard, to be honest with you. Now, our backyard isn't that big to begin with, so.
So is there anywhere you can move it so that you're requesting less of a variance, but it's still tucked away or private?
Sure. Honestly, to be honest with you, this is the first house we bought. I'm very new to all of this, so yeah, I mean, I don't have to put it completely back up against the fence. I'm more than willing to move it a couple feet off of both lines. I just would prefer that it's tucked away in the corner as opposed to in the middle of my backyard.
So what would you feel comfortable with? What?
I'm assuming that if we asked for what we had now, it would be a no. So I mean, what?
You're reading through the lines very well, sir.
Right, I'm doing my best here. So let's play a warm or cold. What if I said 3.5 feet? Would be warm or cold?
Well,
I don't know, how do we do this?
You're absolutely warmer, but I don't think that you're in the tropics just yet.
Okay, so
Just so you folks know, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
one of the rules, if you will, that we are guided by on this board is that we are supposed to grant the smallest variance that would satisfy the need. So that's why, and that's generally true. I don't know if you saw the application earlier in the signs, but it's not like we were just, doing things to tick somebody off. That's not our intent at all. As Mike said earlier, there's a code, and the code says, in this case, shed's supposed to be, for various reasons, by the way, X number of feet from the property line. You're entitled to come in and ask for a variance, which you've done, no problem. You got a thorough application. But we are bound by that rule to grant the smallest one possible. And that's why Matt's asking you that. Everybody wants to preserve their yard and stick a shed in the far corner, but you have to maintain it, so you have to have room to maintain it.
Absolutely.
If you had 4 properties together and everybody put a shed in the same corner, right on the property line, you wouldn't be able to maintain them, and there'd be safety factors too with combustibles and other stuff that's in there. So go ahead.
Well, feasibly, I mean, that's not a topographical map, but in the opposite corner, unless we dug out 4 or 5 feet, I mean, there's a grade there. This side's covered by trees. That side has the only access to it. So, I mean, realistically, the only place we can put a shed is in that southwest corner. Now, granted, I understand the variance that we're asking for is a little over our heads, and I'd be willing to make some type of amendment to that. But honestly, I don't know if we could put aside from putting it in the middle of the yard, I'm not sure that we'd be able to put it anyplace else.
I don't think I don't have an issue with the location within the yard. It really is the 1.1 feet from the property line that you're.
What feet do you feel comfortable with, sir?
10 feet.
Well played. How about 6 feet?
6 feet from the property line. For the west or from the side property we're talking, right?
I have a question. So in the property behind us, there is a shed that's less than a foot away, I would say, from our property line. So, yeah, if you zoom in behind that green line there.
The southeast corner. I mean, he's very close to our property. That's within 10 feet without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that property, or if a variance was requested, or if a permit was pulled, or if a complaints have been made, or I don't know anything about that.
I'm comfortable with doing it, amending the variance for 6 feet from each side, if that's okay with you, Matt.
So you're saying 6 feet for both the rear and the side setback?
No. I don't know.
Could we go 2 feet from the back and 6 feet from the side?
Yeah, so I with the back, I just want to clarify a couple of things. First, the 2 feet, your rear property line is more of a diagonal than a straight line, right? So if the 2 feet is just the back rear corner.
The worst.
The worst, and then it gets better from there, correct?
Correct.
So then, do we know the distance from the furthest away corner right there, Andy? Do we know that distance about?
No.
Okay.
It's approaching 10, it's closer to 10 feet
it's closer to
than 2 feet, though, for sure. As you move, the variance is reduced as you move down to maybe nothing. I mean, that, hard to tell without one of those fancy engineer rulers, but.
Granted, I understand what obligations we have with you guys, but like I said, the neighbor behind us moved that fence, or on the south side of our property, Mrs. O'Brien, I spoke with her yesterday, she has no issues with anything going on along back there, so whatever we can do. And I just want to get the stuff out of my garage so that I can park my camper.
We'll let you talk in a minute about what you're storing in there. So right now, you're asking for it to, your initial application was for it to be 3.4 feet from the rear setback. Do you want to leave that and keep, and make the side setback 6 feet?
Well, I think if we made the side setback 6 feet, I think subsequently would make that other setback just based on the shape of it a little bit. But we could do that, so we'll go 6 feet from the, that would be the west property line, and then I'm honestly not sure of the math.
So how about we phrase it this way? How about 6 feet from the side property line and no less than 3.4 feet from the rear? So it's probably going to be more than 3.4, but we'll phrase it as no less than 3.4.
Yeah, as you move the shed east,
it's going to get bigger.
The need for variance in the back is going to be reduced.
Okay. And it looks like a very nice shed. It's you're not going to paint it any fluorescent colors or anything like that.
No neon glow in the dark colors.
And what it's going to blend in nicely with your house and be aesthetically pleasing, correct?
I believe the top of it is already green to blend in with the trees, but if not, I have full intention of making it as invisible as possible.
And what are you going to be storing in there?
That's going to be snow blower, leaf blower, lawn mower, weed whacker, and the patio furniture in the winter.
Okay. And are there going to be any lights attached to it?
No.
You're going to just be using it for storage, not for any commercial purposes or anything like that?
Strictly storage.
Okay. Okay, I have nothing further.
All right, I don't see anything from the public. Any other board comments or questions? No? Okay, well then let's proceed with the consideration. On the amended application.
On the amended application, first for seeker, I would move to declare it a type 2 application requiring no further review.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
So for the shed, for the amended application, which would be, I guess it would be a 4-foot variance to have it 6 feet from the side property line, and a no, then a 3.4, no less than 3.4 from the property lines, which would make it I'm not going to max 6.6 foot variance. I would make a motion to approve that amended application. The shed looks very nice. I have no issues with the way that it's going to look and how it's going to blend in with the neighborhood. It sounds like neighbors don't have any issue with it. Generally speaking, except for how close it was to the property lines, I had absolutely no issue with this application. So I would approve the amended application as stated.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
You
Go
too.
Bills.
Crosstown Custom Homes, 441 Pembroke Drive, Suite 8, Penfield, New York, 14526. Requests approval for a special permit under Section 250-10.3-A of the code to allow a larger subdivision identification sign than permitted under Section 250-10.16-B of the code at 1918 Jackson Road, which is Lot 1, Stafford Park subdivision. The property is currently or formerly owned by Insight Land Development Incorporated and is zoned R-1-20, SBL number 124.16-1-39.3. This is application number 21Z-0030.
We actually just lost our applicant. Just stood up, there he comes back. All right, great. If we can have your name and address for the record, and then we'll get into the questions.
My name is Rudy Neufeld. I work with Crosstown Construction, and I'm at 1 Mill Pond Lane.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Mike.
So you want to explain what you're asking for? We have the application here, but I'd just like you to go into why you feel a variance is justified here.
Yep, I would be happy to. I did see and was asked to comment on an email from Mr. Sterling, and I would just like to let the board know that the reason on the request for this application, I know it's a bit unusual, it's not for marketing purposes or selling or trying to market the subdivision in some way to enhance the builder or the building company. This subdivision, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to drive through it, but it was a property that was formerly owned by the DeMay family. They still live on the corner, just to the east of us there. And it was a Christmas tree farm, so it's a pretty special piece of property for them. I walked it. I won't get too long and boring, and I fell in love with the property. We're developing it into 20 home sites. They're going to be expensive homes. We have some wonderful clients coming in from out of town. They're going to be Penfield residences, and of course, in long-time Penfield residences are already going to be residences there. So the reason for the sign is twofold. My partners didn't totally agree with it. They said, why don't you just put in a simple sign and be done with it? Well, they had this dream for twofold. The houses in this subdivision are going to be a modern farmhouse look, so a lot of natural wood. And our color depiction there doesn't really do it justice. It looks sort of reddish. But if this is acceptable to the neighbors in the town, this sign structure is actually going to be built from shagbark hickory logs that were farmed from that property. There's a local craftsman that's going to be building it. So it's going to have a very natural, beautiful look to it. And I also have two neighbors across the street, which weren't thrilled when the subdivision went in, but we've gotten to be amicable and friendly with them. And they're fairly close to our neighborhood. So another reason for the sign is a little larger than normal, but there's going to be extensive landscaping, some very soft, well-put lighting, and then it's going to be fairly large trees around and in front of the sign as well as flowers. So the sense of arrival to this will be beautiful for my residences, and it should be very aesthetically pleasing for driving by and for my neighbors across the street. And being able to be a little bit larger, an attractive sign that fits the structure and the feel of the neighborhood, and the larger trees, we're going to be moving in 8 to 10 foot pine trees. I think it's going to give a visual, beautiful sense of arrival, and B, it's going to afford a very nice, natural visual block between our residences and my two neighbors across the street. So that was kind of the dream I had for this, and I'm certainly open to direction or the pleasing of the ladies and gentlemen on the board.
Okay. Why is this necessary to adequately identify this subdivision? Adequately identify it?
It's not at all.
Okay.
It's strictly a visual thing that we feel there's a great expense to it, but I'm willing to do it if it worked for the board and the neighbors. So it's not to identify the neighborhood at all. It's to create a much more pleasing sense of arrival than a 2-foot by 10-foot typical plywood sign that's painted. The letters will be raised, they'll be softly lit from the back, so we think it's going to be a beautiful structure rather than a plywood sign that, has a few bushes around.
Okay, can you give me an example of any sign this size in the general area or close to this size?
I came before you folks, I don't remember, a few years ago when we developed Barclay Park, and we wanted a little bit larger sign. It was denied, which was fine, and we ended up building side structure building and not connecting the sign. So that sign is not that big. I think that was, I don't remember, 20 or 25 square feet, something like that. So I don't know. I didn't parole the neighborhoods or look for other signs. I just wanted to present this and answer whatever questions the board have, and certainly we'll still be able to do a beautiful development the other way, but my heart's kind of into making something special.
Okay, interesting you should bring up Barclay Square. Basically, you were proposing a 60 square foot supporting system for the sign on 250, which is a major north-south route, 55 mile an hour speed limit. We turned it down basically because it didn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood, and now you're asking for a 78 square foot supporting structure. Why? Your vision?
No, we had signed people and designers, and we built lots of different mock-ups and stood in the center of the road and at the edge of the road, and we felt that may not meet the code, and we're certainly ready to put a small sign in, but for all the aesthetic reasons and the size of the landscaping that's going in, we felt that was an appropriate size. It certainly could be smaller, it could just go away and be a regular 2-foot by 10-foot plywood sign.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, Dan.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions from the board?
So one question I have is, so the sign gets, let's assume it's approved, it's built. Who maintains this sign? Because this is a pretty large structure, and let's say something happens with it, or something starts to fall apart on it, and now it turns into an eyesore, or children are playing under it and they're crushed, or things like that. Whatever, all those great things. But how do who keeps it safe? Who maintains it?
Excellent question. You must be an attorney as well as a board member, because we've belabored that on a number of developments. The short answer, the property owner, the future property owner for Lot 1, and it's not just a conversation or an agreement, it's in the deed. So the deed would specify that as long as Insight Development and/or Crosstown Construction owns a lot, that we would be responsible to maintain it, take care of it. And the way we're structuring this is going to be a solid, rough sawn hickory beam that will be holding it up. So it's not a lot of maintenance. They'll have a natural finish. And the deed specifies very clearly that we take care of that right until we sell the very last home. At that point, the homeowner of Lot 1 would have the right to say, we don't like it, get rid of it, plant grass. They could say, we love it, and they could poll their own neighbors and say, in the neighborhood, we're going to get together and take care of it. So they could either have us remove it, or then they, as a neighborhood, have an unofficial kind of an HOA agreement to take care of it. But the owner of 1 would be in full control.
And what would you foresee that timeline being from when you sell the last lot? Just ballpark. I assume you have some kind of long-term plans on how quickly you can develop and build and...
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a guess, but the way it's going now, we probably will be sold out of that, I would say, in 2 years. And the reality of that is the 3rd year when everything's finishing. So I would say 3 years will probably be the time we're maintaining it. And the materials, the metal roof will be the same thing will be on the farmhouse. There'll be solid shagbark hickory beams that will just have a natural oil on them. So there's not a lot of maintenance or masonry or deteriorating that will happen to this sign. I'll probably be long, stop developing property before the sign ever has a need for much maintenance.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? All right, the first thing I'd like to do is read, I think that you were referring to the email I'm about to read. It's pretty brief, but it's from Mr. Steve Spring at 1036 Wayland Road. Says, I will probably not be available to attend the meeting, but I want to note my opposition. They don't need, and the community does not need, a bigger sign to advertise the subdivision. And then he adds parenthetically, with parentheses, what I would like to have seen is for the developer to foot the bill for sidewalks along Jackson Road between Wayland and Jackson Road Extension. So we have that, and then we actually do have a caller, I believe. Phone caller?
Yes. Hello.
Jennifer Decker.
Correct.
Go ahead there, Ms. Decker.
Thank you.
Oh, I have it on as your address being 75 Thorn Tree Circle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, go ahead. Thanks.
Hi. So my concern was the original request, as stated on the plans that were submitted way back when, was a sign that was in compliance with the code, which was 20 square feet, I believe. So the decorative structure they're proposing is now going to be 78 square feet, and the actual sign is going to be 35 square feet, which is almost doubling what the town code allows. I would argue that they have not proved why the sign is necessary to adequately identify the neighborhood. The road is a low speed limit road. It's 35 miles per hour. Just prior, and on both directions, the speed limit goes down to 20. As Mr. Salins, I think, said, for the other sign argument, for Pembroke Village, it's a give and take, and this sign is not going to add to the, it's going to take away from the visual impact of the area. It's not lessening the visual impact, it's increasing it in a negative way. It's not in character with the neighborhood. I've lived in Penfield all my life. There is not another subdivision with a giant billboard-sized sign in front of it. The town board has already decided what is appropriate and created and written it into code. I don't see how or why he's argued or given reason why it's necessary to exceed that.
Right. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Decker? No. I just, yeah, I would just comment that I don't think the applicant's even tried to say,
I agree,
this is why we need it to be larger. He just says it's a nice piece almost of artwork identifying, and he's entitled to make that claim if he wants. But, okay, thank you for your comments, Ms. Decker.
May I make one other comment?
Sure, of course.
I'm so sorry.
No.
The only other thing that I wanted to also state is I don't believe it's appropriate for him to compare a code size sign as stating that it's going to be a piece of plywood tacked up, because I'm fairly certain that Penfield Town Code does not allow for a neighborhood sign identification to be a simple piece of plywood with painted lettering stuck in the ground. So I feel like that comparison is a little bit of a stretch, and maybe he's trying to upsell this grand piece of artwork he's envisioned.
Well, and we would thank you for that, and we would hope that, of course, any developer, any in the town is going to want to put up something nice. I mean, to put up something that's not nice is not going to help sell the properties. So,
correct.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? No. Rudy, did you want to add anything? Because I think that's the last comment that we have.
No, I've mentioned it, and either way, whatever the decision is, we will still make that a beautiful development, and it's pretty special to us, so we'll just await your decision.
Okay, well, you'll have it shortly. So I think that's all the comments. Let's proceed with the consideration.
All right, for seeker, I move that this is an unlisted action, issue a negative declaration, no further adverse environmental impacts.
Second.
All right, so we have the seeker motion to declare it unlisted and additionally issue a negative declaration, and we have a second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, on the merits, Mike?
I'm going to, again, move to deny this. I really do appreciate your honesty and candor as to the reasons why you applied for this and why you want this particular structure with the sign on it. But if we're going to stay consistent in our decisions, I don't see how we can grant a 60-square-foot supporting structure on a 12-foot, on a 35-foot sign when we denied a 12-square-foot sign and a 60-square-foot supporting structure on a major highway where the speed limit is much faster. So there's a precedence issue here. Also, if you look around the area, which I did, there's a bunch of signs that, for subdivisions. There's Country Club East, there's Village Green East, Village Green, and even Penfield Country Club. Those signs are all minuscule in comparison to this, not even 20 square feet in a number of situations. So it's just totally out of character for the neighborhood. I lived on Old Jackson Road, which is what that's called, between the extension and Wayland for 29 years. And I can tell you, there's nothing that size anywhere near there. The actual speed limit's 35 and there's 20 foot on each side of a curve. So coming from either direction, you gotta go pretty slow.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna have a problem finding it, and I think Rudy admitted that, so.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion to deny and a second. Any further discussion from anyone?
I just think it's important to note that one of the elements that we have to consider is that we shall find that it's necessary to adequately identify the business. And he said it wasn't necessary to identify the business. So I think that's important to note too.
Yeah, and I think that's why Mike acknowledged his candor. So,
Yeah.
okay, we have a motion to deny in a second. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't usually get to be before this board, but always a pleasure at Penfield. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
And I think that was it. All right, so the hearings are done for the night, and we'll see you next month. Thank you very much.